Go.
All right, Levon, first thing we want to talk to you about, and then we'll talk about Brian as well, but you got the nomination for the College Football Hall of Fame. What's that mean to you, man?
It means a great deal. It means that your work was really appreciated, that people like what you put on the field. And, you know, my whole thing when I played football was to have fun and entertain people and make my family as proud as I possibly could. So to get this, man, it's really amazing. I was stunned by the news as I saw it on Twitter, but it's really cool. And, man, fingers crossed, man, I'll be a part of the Hall of Fame.
Todd?
You know, you're in the Ring of Honor. That must have been the big thing, whether this happens or not. You're in the Ring of Honor, right?
Yeah, you know, I am in the stadium, so that's kind of cool. And my family's last name is in that stadium, so that's the best part about it. So, yeah, you know, I'm really happy about what has happened throughout my life and throughout my career. I just remember being that 11-year-old, dreaming of big dreams, and for all this to happen is amazing.
Now, Levon, you're here because of Brian today. Talk a little bit about that and, what that means to you.
I mean, it's a great deal for me. I've done an interview with Brian on my podcast, Inside Bliss, and he's so inspirational. And to hear his story, it really makes you reflect. And really, hopefully what it does is make you grateful. And to see him and his attitude and how he's handling it, I don't know if a lot of people could do it the way he's doing with the class and the character in which he approaches his life, and it just can't be easy. So to see him doing that, I thought this story, especially for the Clemson fans, this story should be told. Everybody that's involved with Clemson, that's a fan of Clemson, should recognize and understand who Brian Mance is. And if they don't, it's a shame, because he's a part of the, what if you want to call it Clemson family, he's a part of that family, and his story should be known throughout. Everybody should know who he is. I mean, because he's going to really motivate you to live your best life. And I was really moved after we talked to him and interviewed him. And I mean, I couldn't be happier that we were trying to honor him.
Where do you think that spirit and kind of attitude comes from with him?
Wow, I wish I knew, because I think you probably can sell it. You really could. I mean, this guy should be on the speaking circuit telling his story. Because you're healthy one day, and then the next day you wake up, you can't do some of the things that we take for granted. So his spirit has to come from a lot of faith. That's what I'm thinking, a lot of faith, and just really, he's just optimistic. He told me he's going to walk again, and from where he came from to at this point now, is a possibility. It's all amazing.
I know he's probably had his down moments, but he doesn't seem like he's too down. He's inspiring others, in fact, too.
Right. Yeah. He doesn't. When you talk to him, the thing that when I did the interview with him, 2 picture frames, and it said "It is well," and the other one was "With my soul." And for me, coming from a Bible from a church background, that was a hymn that we sung all the time. "Is well with my soul," and so. Even the story he took, the person who actually wrote the song, it's amazing. And I'm telling you, man, he is a guy that just really almost brought me to tears. And I just wish him the best of luck. He deserves it. He's one of the best people that I know.
He's going to will himself to walk in.
I really believe that he will. When he told me, that was the last interview we did, that's what he told me, and I totally believed him. I totally believe that he will, and I see that him doing it. But like I said before, if you don't know his story and you're a Clemson fan, you really need to Google him and see what he's all about. And I think he's a guy that can uplift millions of people. Really can.
Do you know his wife at all?
I don't really know his wife, but she's an incredible woman too.
Yeah, Brian told me, I'm not the coach in the family anymore. She's coaching me up every day.
That's how it is, though. You know how it is. That's just how it is, man. Yeah. You got a strong woman on your side, man. They're basically, moving you in the right direction. So I'm sure it's the same thing with Brian's wife. But yeah, incredible people.
We've had a lot of people talk today about other things going on in the world of sports. One of the big things, got a couple of things. Your thoughts, first of all, on the name, image, and likeness. I know me and you have talked about this before, and then also the transfer portal. You had some thoughts on that. I heard when you were on Packer the other day.
Right. Yeah. The transfer portal is really not. That's not my generation. It's something new, but I also believe that you have to embrace change as well. Sometimes as a young person, you can maybe make a decision that you thought was the right decision, and then it's not really the fit. And I think if guys would have had that opportunity back then, they would have done it. But we didn't, so we just kind of stuck in there. I don't know if I totally agree with it, to be honest with you. I would like to see guys kind of maybe, be in a tough decision, be in a tough position, and see if they can come out of it. And I think that kind of tests you more, but I also see the other side too. Maybe the coaching staff wasn't quite the coaching staff you thought it was, and you're not clicking. And although it seems like to the outside world that you're kind of taking your ball and you're running with it, and you're being somewhat of a child, I think it's everybody's right to change their mind and be able to go on and do what they love and maybe do it at a better place. So I don't see anything wrong with that. Getting paid for your image, I really don't see anything wrong with that. I kind of wish we had it back in the day. So I can't blame guys for, you're just born. You're just born this time. It's just what's going to happen. I think it's fair in a lot of ways. I think that it's going to go through some changes. There's some things. There's going to be some pattern recognition that you have to recognize with it. But we're about, me and you talk about this all the time, Will. I'm always about the student athlete. I'm for the student athlete. And if it's something that can help them and can prepare them to be better as they go out in the world, I'm all for it. So there has been a lot of big changes in college football. If you're a coach, I think that's the ones you kind of feel for, because now they have to navigate this whole thing. I think also with ADs, you have to navigate this whole thing. Now you're probably going to be bringing in, imagine bringing in people who want to represent these players as well.
Yeah, there's got to be. I think there's going to be a third party that's going to try to represent.
Wow.
The school's got to work through. Yeah.
Now that's the thing that I think will be difficult. How do you weed out the good from the bad in those situations? If you thought having agents were bad, now this is going to even amp it up a little bit more. So I think colleges have a challenge on their hands.
What do you think about the legislation that came out last week about players becoming employees of a university? Your thoughts on that, and do you think that's kind of maybe taken a little too far with the college status?
I think it's, I guess it's from every individual's perspective. How do you see this? I really don't know enough to really make a firm stand on one side or the other. I can see it both ways. It's something that I have to look at a little further. In a lot of ways, it doesn't seem like that should be, right? Mm-hmm. A college player being an employee of the college, but things are kind of changing, so maybe that is the status that they're going to be looked upon. But man, it seems like they have a long time, they're going to be working for the rest of their lives to be employees, so it really doesn't seem to fit. Mm-hmm. But I think it's the way that it's going.
As far as the Hall of Fame, do you look at that list of guys and that roster and the guys you're up against and think about your chances, or how do you take it?
At first you kind of look at some of the names, you're like, wow, but I look at my career as humble as I can. I think that I measure up with all those guys. And I feel like if you look at it closely, that especially from the time that I played, that I feel like I was one of the better linebackers who ever played the game in the college level. And that's not really boasting. I don't vote for this stuff. I haven't nominated myself for this, but if you take one of my friends told me, Kirk, if they take a look at what you've done, then I feel like you should be in. I don't know if I'm going to be in, and I hope I am. I'm going to be honest with that. I really hope it happens. But that's not my vote, But I think comparatively speaking, I felt like I played the position very well. And I felt like I played it just as well as anybody else on that list.
And in all fairness, some of those guys you played against in the NFL, right?
Yeah, you played against those guys, and you wish you could combine both because I think if you could combine both, then I think that, yes, I'm in the Hall of Fame. But, it's really what you did in college. And, it's been back since the late 80s, early 90s that I played. But like I said before, I thought that, some of my stats were just as good. And, without some of the fanfare, I thought that I measured up just as well as those other players. But also looking at those other players, that it's like, wow, it's a lot of amazing guys that I already figured they made the Hall of Fame already. I'm like, wait a minute, this guy's not in the Hall of Fame? They're not in the Hall of Fame? So it's a lot of guys to choose from, and I just hope to be in that number.
Yeah, I guess some of the guys you played with at Clemson, such as that's why you talk about your stats. Maybe that's why they're not as blown, because you played with guys that played in the NFL as well.
Well, also, with our team back in those days, I'm just going to count my position. I'm not going to say all the other guys that we were surrounded, but the 4 guys that played the outside linebacker position were guys that if you would put them any other place on any other defense, you're talking about probably 12 sacks or something like that. Mm-hmm. Each one of us did that. But we were pretty unselfish, and we were able to really not play as much as a lot of people. We really didn't play as much as individuals when we had those 4 guys. So I really feel that, comparatively speaking, man, our stats and everything would have been tremendous. But, like I said before, that's up to voters. But I feel like, just the competition in our room was just hectic. And we had some guys that were really, really very good players, man, and I was fortunate enough to play with those guys.
And can you name those guys?
Oh yeah, Wayne Simmons, may he rest in peace. One of my partners, actually, the guy that played the same position as I did. We competed very hard, and then on the other side we had John Johnson, a guy that was drafted in the 2nd round with the San Francisco 49ers, and then Ashley Shepard, who was also drafted with the Minnesota Vikings in the 4th round. Wayne was a 1st-round pick with Green Bay, and of course I was 2nd-round pick with the Pittsburgh Steelers. So you can imagine that room was pretty competitive, and we had guys like Chester McLaughlin, Ed McDaniels, Vance Hammond, Brinston Buckner, James Trapp, Dexter Davis. We just had a slew of guys that, we had a guy named Rod Bodine that was amazing at maybe 6 foot and was All-American. So it was hard to make a tackle. I'm talking about a sack in the game. We had to fight for tackles and all that. So, but I wouldn't have it any other way, because I really felt that helped me grow into the player that I became with the Pittsburgh Steelers.
And don't forget Arlington Nunn.
Arlington Nunn, that's right. So many guys. I actually forget Jerome Henderson. We had O'Neal that was on our team. We had a bunch of guys, man. Kenzel Jackson was a good guy. Chuck O'Brien. We had a slew of guys that can play. And like I said, we used to look at the team. Me and Ashley were talking yesterday, and we were just like, man, our 3rd string was good. We had a 3rd string was really good. So that was a unique situation, having those many players at one position be so good. And I thought the beauty of it, that we were really unselfish, and we were able to say, you know what, we're going to rotate. We're going to make sure everybody gets a chance to play, because everybody had that good of a talent to play out there. But I think that's one of the things too. We were fighting for tackles, man. We really were. So it was amazing.